There is a special kind of quiet that exists only in the wake of a nuclear explosion. It's not a peaceful quiet. It's a vacuum, a held breath, a ringing in the ears after a sound so loud it obliterates everything else. I learned this on a Saturday evening, in the middle of my parents' anniversary party, surrounded by the very people who thought they knew our family. The party was in full swing. A jazz quartet played softly in the corner. The air was thick with the scent of gardenias and expensive champagne, and my sister, Sophia, was, as always, the radiant center of the universe. She floated through the crowd in a crimson dress, her laughter like wind chimes, her hand permanently attached to the arm of her husband, Julian.
Julian.
My Julian. I was doing what I always did at these events, playing my part. The quiet, dependable older sister. The one who helped in the kitchen, who listened to my aunt's stories, who smiled and nodded while Sophia held court. I was a satellite, orbiting her sun, forever in her shadow but never warmed by her light. I watched them together, my heart a familiar, aching knot in my chest. Julian looked devastatingly handsome in a simple dark suit, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Our gazes met across the room, and for a fleeting, treacherous second, the wall we so carefully maintained in public slipped. A look of shared pain, of a secret so heavy it was crushing us both, passed between us. It was that look that shattered everything. Sophia saw it. Of course she did. Her radar for any disruption in her universe was infallible. I saw the moment her brilliant socialite mask slipped. The charming smile froze, then tightened into something cold and sharp. Her eyes darted from Julian's pained expression to my guilty one, and a terrible, calculating understanding dawned on her face. She excused herself from her circle of friends and started walking toward me. The crowd seemed to instinctively part for her, sensing a predator on the move. She stopped inches from me, her perfume suddenly cloying and suffocating. "Is there something you're not telling me, Amelia?" she asked, her voice a low, venomous whisper meant only for my ears. The music seemed to fade away. My blood ran cold. "Sophia, please. Not here. Not now." "Why not here?" Her voice rose, sharp and clear, drawing the attention of the guests nearest to us. "I think here is perfect. I think everyone should see what you've become." Tears, perfect and crystalline, welled in her eyes. They were Academy Award-winning tears, practiced and precise. "My whole life," she declared, her voice trembling with a performance so convincing it turned every head in the room. The jazz quartet faltered and stopped. "My whole life, you've been there, in the background, watching me, jealous of everything I had. My friends, my success, my life, but I never dreamed you would sink this low." "Sophia, stop it," I pleaded, my own voice a choked whisper. I could feel the heat of 200 stares boring into me. "You stole him from me," she screamed. The sound was raw, guttural, and it sucked all the air out of the room. Her tears began to fall in earnest now, tracing paths through her perfect makeup. "You saw how happy we were. You saw the life we built. And you couldn't stand it. You poisoned him against me. You whispered your lies in his ear until you twisted his mind." I stood frozen, my heart trembling inside my chest like a captured bird. I was exposed, naked under the glittering chandelier, the villain in the story she was crafting live for her audience. I saw the looks on the faces of our family and friends, shock, pity for her, disgust for me. My mother's hand was pressed over her mouth. My father's brow was furrowed in confusion and anger. I was losing. She was weaving her narrative, and I was the thread she was pulling to tighten the noose around my own neck. Everyone waited for my reply, for my denial, for my defense. But the words wouldn't come. How could I defend myself without revealing the truth? A truth that would detonate our entire family. I looked at Julian, my eyes begging him, my silence screaming for him to do something, to say something, to stop this madness. And that's when he moved. He didn't look at Sophia. He didn't try to calm her. He simply walked away from her, his movements calm and deliberate amidst the chaos. He crossed the room, each step echoing in the profound silence. The crowd watched, mesmerized, as he walked past his sobbing wife without a glance. He walked directly to me. He stopped in front of me, his eyes filled with a resolve I had never seen before. And then, in front of everyone, our parents, our friends, my shattered sister, he reached down and took my hand. His fingers laced through mine, his grip firm, warm, and solid. It was an anchor in the hurricane of my panic. It was a declaration. It was a revolution. The gasp from the crowd was a collective shudder. Sophia's crying stopped abruptly. Her face, so perfectly tragic a moment before, was now a mask of utter, incomprehensible shock. This was not in her script. Julian turned to face the room, still holding my hand. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The silence was absolute. "Amelia didn't steal me, Sophia," he said, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the tension like a knife. "You never had me to begin with. To understand the explosion at the party, you have to understand the prison that was Sophia and Julian's marriage. You have to understand that my sister doesn't love people, she collects them. And Julian was her most prized trophy. Their story was the stuff of family legend. Sophia, the beautiful, ambitious corporate lawyer, meets Julian, the brilliant, slightly shy architect, at a charity gala. She pursued him with the single-minded determination she applied to everything she wanted. He was flattered, swept off his feet by her whirlwind energy. They were engaged within 6 months, married in a spectacular ceremony within a year. From the outside, it was perfect. The power couple, the beautiful home, the glamorous life. I saw the cracks from the beginning. It started with small things. She'd correct his stories in public, a sweet, tinkling laugh followed by, "Oh, honey, that's not how it happened." She'd choose his clothes, his friends, even his brand of coffee. She was crafting him, sanding down his rough edges to fit the perfect image she had in her mind. Julian, kind and non-confrontational, allowed it. He loved her, or he thought he did. He mistook her possessiveness for passion, her control for care. I was his safe space. Sophia, in a rare miscalculation, had appointed me as his local guide when he first moved to the city. "Show him around, Amelia," she'd said. "You're good with quiet people." It was a backhanded compliment, but I took the job seriously. Our friendship was born in those early days. We'd meet for coffee, and he could just be himself. He didn't have to perform. We'd talk about books, art, our dreams of traveling to places far from black-tie galas and boardrooms. It was easy. It was real. After the wedding, the dynamic changed. Sophia's control tightened. Our coffees became secretive, snatched moments when she was working late. He'd call me sometimes, his voice heavy with a fatigue I knew wasn't from work. "She wants to redo the entire house," he'd sigh. "Again. She says my taste is too austere." Or, "She's booked us a couples retreat in Bali. I have a major project deadline, but she says my priorities are wrong." I was his confidant, the keeper of his quiet despair. I listened, I offered sympathy, but I always defended her. "She just loves you, Julian. She wants the best for you." I believed it. I had to. The alternative, that my sister was systematically erasing the man I cared for, was too terrible to consider. The turning point came 2 years ago. Sophia was offered a partner track at her firm, which meant longer hours, more travel, more pressure. She came home one night and announced, without discussion, that Julian needed to scale back his own work. "You'll have plenty of time for your little models and drawings when I'm running the firm," she'd said, kissing his forehead as if she'd just granted him a great gift. That was the night he showed up at my door. It was raining. He stood on my doorstep, soaked and shivering, with a lost look in his eyes. "She's canceling my trip to Japan," he said, his voice hollow. "The design summit. The one I've been working toward for a year. She double-booked us for a donors ball she forgot to tell me about." I brought him inside, gave him a towel, made him tea. We sat on my sofa, and he just broke. He told me everything. The constant criticisms. The isolation from his friends. The way she mocked his passions. The life he thought he was building was a beautifully decorated cage. "I feel like I'm disappearing, Amelia," he whispered, staring into his mug. "The person she married, he's gone. And I don't know who I am anymore." My heart shattered for him. Without thinking, I reached out and put my hand over his. "You're Julian Hayes," I said, my voice fierce. "You're brilliant and kind, and your taste is not austere, it's elegant. And you deserve to go to Japan." He looked up at me, and the gratitude in his eyes was so profound it stole my breath. And in that moment, something shifted. The line between friendship and something more, something deeper and more dangerous, blurred and then vanished. He didn't go to Japan. He went to the donors' ball. But after that night, we were different. The stolen moments became more frequent, more intense. The conversations ventured into dangerous territory. What if? Why not? We were falling in love. It was slow and terrifying and felt more inevitable than anything in my life. The guilt was a constant, gnawing presence. I was betraying my sister, but I rationalized it. I was saving him. I was showing him what real love looked like, not ownership but partnership, not criticism but admiration. We became masters of deception. Coded texts, secret walks, a shared Google Doc where we planned a fantasy trip to Japan we knew we could never take. It was our hidden world, a beautiful, painful secret. He tried to leave her. Once. He packed a bag and told her he was unhappy. Her reaction wasn't sadness, it was rage, followed by a masterclass in manipulation. She cried. She blamed his stress. She threatened to tell everyone he was having a nervous breakdown. She threatened to ruin his professional reputation with whispers of instability. She told him he would be nothing without her. He unpacked his bag. We were trapped. We were cowards, bound by our love for each other and our fear of her. We existed in a state of suspended animation, waiting for a solution that never came, our secret love growing in the dark. We never meant for it to happen. We never planned to hurt anyone. But love, real love, doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about timing or morality or family loyalty. It just is. And Sophia, with her predator's instinct, had finally sensed it. She saw the truth in that single, unguarded look across the room. And she chose her battlefield, a public stage where she could play the victim and ensure my total annihilation. She never expected Julian to fight back. She never expected him to choose me. But as he stood there, holding my hand, telling the stunned room that she had never possessed him, I saw the one thing she had never accounted for, his courage. And it was the end of her hope to control him, and us, forever. The silence in the wake of Julian's statement was more deafening than Sophia's scream had been. You could hear the ice melting in abandoned glasses. Sophia stood utterly still, her face a frozen mask of shock. The performance was over. The audience was staring at a plot twist she hadn't written. "What did you say?" she whispered, the words barely audible. Julian didn't let go of my hand. His grip was my lifeline. "You heard me, Sophia. This marriage has been a transaction from the beginning. I was the handsome, respectable husband for your portfolio. You were the brilliant, ambitious wife for mine. But it was never real. You never knew me. You never wanted to. You just wanted to own me." "How can you say that?" she cried, but the tears were different now, desperate, real tears of panic. "I love you. I've given you everything. This life. This house. Everything." "You gave me a gilded cage," Julian replied, his voice weary but firm. "You took everything that was me and tried to replace it with a version you approved of. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of me. And Amelia," he looked down at me, and his expression softened into something so tender it made my heart ache. "Amelia saw me, the real me, and she loved me anyway." It was the final, devastating blow. He wasn't just leaving her, he was stating that her love was inferior. A cheap forgery. Sophia's eyes widened, the truth of his words hitting her with physical force. Her gaze snapped to me, and the shock in her eyes curdled into pure, undiluted hatred. "You," she spat. "You did this. You filled his head with these lies. You've always been jealous. You pathetic, lonely. That's enough, Sophia. The voice was my father's. He stepped forward, his face ashen, his usual jovial demeanor gone. This is not the time or the place. Not the place. Sophia laughed, a hysterical, broken sound. She's destroying my marriage in front of everyone, and you're worried about the place? He's right, my mother said, her voice trembling. She looked older, shrunken. This is a family matter. We should go home and discuss this privately. No, the word came from Julian. There's nothing to discuss privately. The discussion is over. I'm leaving. I'm leaving Sophia, and I'm leaving with Amelia. The finality in his voice was absolute. There was no negotiation, no room for her manipulation. He had broken the rules of their game, and in doing so, he had taken all her power. Sophia looked around the room, at the faces of her friends and family, and saw not pity, but a dawning understanding. They were seeing the cracks. They were hearing the truth in Julian's words, remembering her controlling behavior, her need to always be the star. The perfect image she had spent a lifetime building was crumbling to dust in front of her. Her shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of her. The anger was replaced by a hollow, devastating emptiness. She wasn't a betrayed wife anymore. She was a deposed queen watching her subjects realize she had no clothes. That was the end of her hope. Without another word, without looking at anyone, she turned and walked out of the living room. We heard her footsteps on the marble floor of the foyer, and then the sound of the front door closing with a soft, definitive click. The spell was broken. The crowd began to murmur, to shuffle awkwardly, to make excuses to leave. The party was over. Julian finally let go of my hand, but only to put his arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. "I'm so sorry," he murmured into my hair. "I should have done that a long time ago. I should never have let it get to this point." I leaned into him, my body trembling with adrenaline and relief. "You did it now," I whispered. "That's all that matters." The aftermath was messy, of course. There were weeks of tense family meetings, angry phone calls from Sophia's lawyers, and the inevitable social fallout. We were pariahs in certain circles. Sophia painted us as the villains in her story, the treacherous sister and the weak-willed husband who conspired against her. But a strange thing happened. Some people reached out to us. A cousin confessed she'd always thought Sophia was a lot. An old friend of Julian's from college bought him a beer and said, "Honestly, man, I wondered how long you could last in that." We discovered that the perfect facade had been transparent to more people than we'd thought. The most difficult part was my parents. They were heartbroken and ashamed. They couldn't understand how something like this could happen in their family. My mother, in particular, was devastated by the rift between her daughters. I tried to explain. I tried to tell them about the isolation, the control, the slow erosion of Julian's spirit. I'm not sure they ever fully understood. They saw a marriage broken by an affair, not one where the affair was a symptom of a marriage that was already broken. Julian moved into a small apartment. I didn't go with him immediately. We both needed time to breathe, to let the dust settle, to make sure we were choosing each other for a future, not just running from a painful past. It was during that time that I found the strength to go see Sophia. She was in the perfect, empty house, surrounded by the artifacts of a life that no longer existed. She let me in. She looked thinner, older, but her eyes were clear and cold. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat. "I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you," I said. It was the truth. She let out a short, bitter laugh. "You didn't hurt me, Amelia. You revealed me. That's so much worse." She wasn't wrong. We stood in silence for a moment, two sisters separated by a chasm of choices and fundamentally different understandings of love. "I did love him in my way," she said finally, looking out the window at her perfectly manicured garden. "It may not have been the way he wanted, but it was the only way I knew how." And in that moment, I felt a pang of pity for her. She was in a prison of her own making, and she didn't even have the key. I left without saying goodbye. Some wounds are too deep for words. A year later, Julian and I bought a small house together. It's nothing like Sophia's mansion. It's filled with his architectural drawings and my overwatered plants and books piled on every surface. It's messy and warm and real. We don't talk about Sophia much. The past is a country we have both left. Sometimes, though, I'll catch him looking at me across a room, and I'll see a flicker of that old pain, followed by a wave of profound gratitude. And I'll feel the same. It wasn't the way we would have chosen. The cost was enormous. But as he walks across our cluttered living room and takes my hand, I know, without a doubt, that we chose right. We chose the truth. And we chose each other.